So some of you may have bought pinch grippers already and not be sure the best way to use them. You can see the utility of the product, but at the same time not really be sure the best way to optimize your application of it. So I'm just going to go through a few possible ways to take advantage of it. One exercise in particular that will lend itself very well is a one-armed row, because this simulates very well the type of motion that in real life we'd be needing to do in a pinch grip motion. A lot of times in real life when we need to pick something up, it's from that downward motion. Obviously another type of motion is a curl. Curl is, you know, a lot of people think it's a less functional exercise, but if you've worked with a chainsaw for hours on end, you know that the curl becomes very, very utilitarian at that point when you're holding the chainsaw for hours, just flexing that position. So hammer curl can be very useful. Palms up curl can be very useful. Now, one of the issues you'll find is, let's say for instance on a one-arm row, maybe I'll normally do 90 or 100 pounds. A 30 is challenging with this. So a good rule of thumb is to start out with about 20 to 30% of what you normally would do for a given exercise and a given number of reps. So here I've got a 30 pound, which is honestly pretty heavy for that. So the issue is, if you're trying to train, let's say for instance you want to do one-arm rows, your limiting factor if you're using the pinch gripper becomes your hand, obviously. It's no longer your lats, your traps, your rotator cuff, your rhomboids, all those muscles that you're used to engaging. So even though it will engage those, and in fact in some ways it'll engage them more because of the fact that you'll get a very high neurological stimulation because of the intensity of the hand and the fact that the hands are heavily linked with the nervous system, but you're still not going to get the same level of strength carryover as if you went and did your 90-pound row. So you have a couple of options. One is you can come in and you can grab a set, let's say 5 with the 30, and then set that down, and then grab your heavier weight and go right into your set with that immediately afterwards. This way, you will use this bottleneck hand strength apparatus to get that done, and then roll right into the lat, rotator cuff, trap, rear delt, all that, the big muscle groups that you're really trying to work here. Now, your hand's going to get a little tired here, but it's not going to be a big deal because your hand is able to wrap around fully here. Another way to do that is to split it up and just treat your pinch grip work as a pure body part in and of itself. So it's like, okay, when I'm doing one-arm rows, I'm doing back. But whenever I'm doing pinch gripper, I'm doing hands. So what it may come down to is, let's say you're designing your workout program. You say, all right, today I'm going to do shoulders, lats, quads, whatever. If, let's say, depending on how you design things, you know, there's obviously the bodybuilding split routine, and then there's strength training, which divides things up more into functional ways. But the point is, if you want to train your grip, you need to treat it as a supplementary training category, just like anything else. So if you divide it by body parts, then you might say, okay, I got delts, I got triceps, I got biceps, I got forearms, I have grip. Grip is even separate from forearms because forearms is working your wrist. Even though the grip muscles are in the forearms, training grip is very different than training wrists. There's a lot of overlap, but they're not the same thing. Anyway, whenever you divide your exercise categories up, you may want to just say, this is a hand strength category. So let's say you make a circuit that goes, got a shoulder exercise, a lat exercise, a hamstring exercise, quad exercise. Okay, well in there you could also include a grip exercise. So it could be, for instance, overhead press, pull down, followed by hyperextensions for the hamstrings, followed by a one-arm row for the hand, followed by lunge for the quads, if that makes sense. So it can be a standalone in that way, to where it's actually, when you do that exercise with this, you are specifically training this. Now, the full utility of pinch grip is really only going to be experienced if you do a variety of exercises. So you could go one-arm row, you could go curl, you could go side laterals. You know, if you come and pick up smaller, you know, do your side laterals with it. And each of those are going to hit it in different ways. You can see that when you do the side lateral, the thumb is taking the brunt of it. But when you do a curl, your fingers are taking the brunt of it. When you do a row, it's all equal. Now, when it's equal, still a 1-to-4 ratio, so the thumb is going to take the brunt of it. But the point is, in real life, you're going to have to use a pinch grip in a variety of motions and motor patterns. And so it's good to train it in those. So when you train the side lateral with the pinch gripper, don't treat it as a shoulder exercise. You'll get your side laterals done later as shoulder. Or if you do want to treat it as one, you can do it in a circuit where you're pounding your shoulders so much that they're not going to have enough gas in the tank to actually do their normal weight. Obviously, if you train rows, you won't be anywhere near your normal weight. With biceps, there's a little bit of a deficit, but not nearly as much as a row. With a bicep, for instance, you might be able to do 60% of what you can do, whereas with a row, probably 30% is pushing it. Side lateral, you can probably do about 70%. So some of this will be learned by trial and error, but the point is, treat it either as a standalone body part by itself and give it whatever exercise that you want. Let your body focus on the hand strength aspect while doing other natural motions that will carry over into real life, or treat it as a superset type of thing like I was talking about with a one-arm row followed by a different one-arm row. Or we could go over to, for instance, like a T-bar row. We could walk up to that, do a set with the pinch grippers, gas out like that, then immediately throw plates on it and do your real set.